Welcome back to Let's Talk Tax, powered by McGuire Sponsel. I'm your host, TJ Sponsel, and today we're closing out Season 2 of Let's Talk Tax with a conversation that looks back on one of the most dynamic years we've seen in our industry. 2025 brought major shifts for CPA firms, clients, and referral partners from legislative change and economic turbulence to new expectations around advisory, specialization, and collaboration. And few people haven't had a closer, more consistent view of those changes than today's guest. I'm joined by my colleague, Tim LeMasters, our director of the Alliance Network here at McGuire Sponsel. Well, Tim, I'm not sure, we're both usually hosts of Let's Talk Tax, so I'm not sure if I'm supposed to welcome you or you're supposed to welcome me. So let's just welcome everybody that's joining us today.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Well, we do appreciate all of our listeners, and as we look back on 2025, it's been a definitely an interesting year. Well, an interesting 6 months. Ever since the One Big Beautiful Bill passed on and was signed on July 4th. So as we look back, Tim, in 2025, what would you say was probably the most defining moment in 2025?
Well, that one's going to be easy. There's kind of this thought of, pre-COVID, post-COVID, we're going to go pre-OB3 and post-OB3. Because obviously for us, we know how the year started, right? It was kind of a grind, getting things done, just figuring out how to kind of get things in order. Our CPAs were scrambling. It was kind of one of those things that it was just, where are we going to focus all of our time on? Technical updates, being relational as we always are. But then you get kind of after OB3, and for everybody that doesn't know, that's what I call the One Big Beautiful Bill. So after OB3, it's one of those deals where now all of a sudden we need to be a major technical resource for our CPAs, obviously their clients. So I would say that's kind of the staple of 2025 in our world, is pre and post.
I think whenever you have a certain tax policy, that creates a lot of opportunities.
Correct.
I think from January of 23 all the way through June of 25, it was kind of, when is 174 going to get fixed?
Correct.
Is bonus depreciation coming back? Those were questions that we navigated through. And during that 2.5 years of when 174 amortization was a reality, it was very punitive on our clients. And I think when OB3 was passed, OB3,
Appreciate that.
is that when OB3 was passed, I think it created a whole nother set of conversations with our clients. Suddenly, clients that had been sitting on the sidelines, maybe with their R&D credits because of 174 purposes, want to have those conversations. Clients that had been doing 174 properly and they were under $31 million of revenue. Okay, how do I correct it? Their immediate thought was, let's amend tax returns and refunds. And we're like, whoa, time out.
Yeah.
Time out. You may not understand how long it's going to take to process. We don't know how long it's going to take to process that. Obviously, bonus depreciation coming back for people involved in real estate was a welcome tax benefit. So there's been a lot of it's a different type of conversation the second half of 25, but it's been very exciting because again, we've been able to demonstrate who we are to the CPA industry and what we are to their clients.
Yeah, I would agree. It's obviously been a lot of fun for you and I. Obviously, we travel a lot. We're on the road. Going out and just kind of having those lunch meetings, coffee meetings, those are great. I love those. But when you get a new bill and we get to go out and we kind of show that technical level of expertise that we have internally, rolling out Dave McGuire, letting him kind of roll out the bonus depreciation, obviously getting you involved with some of our clients. Jerry Hamill's obviously running with this. So it has been a lot of fun kind of watching this unfold and how it's received. Our CPAs, obviously, they act accordingly. It's almost like you go out, you have these conversations like, oh, I got something for you,
Sure.
And then all these questions come along with it. And we're very fortunate to have somebody like Dave McGuire, just obviously his brain.
Well, that goes back to a decision. I'm proud of that decision we made in 2018.
Yeah.
When we were sitting there and over the past 10 years, the firm has doubled twice. And it is something that I look back to that conversation that Dave and I had in August of 2018 when we said we are going to get to the next level. We are going to lead by being a technical firm. And so that's obviously that's been his baby ever since. And I love how we've expanded it now to include across all of our service lines. Yeah. It's not just Dave and a depreciation, it's Greg Lambrick and global business dynamic.
Absolutely.
Global business planning. It's Ben Worrell on economics incentives, site selection. It's obviously David Seibel and Tanner Niehaus on R&D tax credits.
Yep.
It's really expanded to where we want to be that technical resource to the CP industry. And this time of year, this obviously we're releasing this in December of 2025, and Q4 is a time when we're out there talking to all of our firms. We're equipping them with the triggers that they need to be able to serve their clients dynamically with the services we offer.
Yeah.
I think, but and talking about the services we offer, I think, you know, Dave and I just celebrated our 18-year anniversary of McGuire Sponsel. We've been together 20 years because we were together at another firm before then. And I look at how we've grown and how we've expanded our reach, and you look at what we're doing on property tax and global business and how that's been received by our CPA firms. Why don't you touch on a little bit of that in terms of how our firms have adopted some of these newer service lines that we've invested in?
Well, every time I walk in your office, I'm asking if we're going to do something new. So it only benefits me and the team.
Today's Friday. We'll probably think of something by Monday.
Yeah, I would tell you it's what I've found interesting, and obviously you know how I feel about you, and obviously the rest of the executive. I appreciate you all for all that you do for the firm. The one thing that you guys continue to do is invest, and I know we've talked about that a little bit, but the biggest thing that we've looked at is said, okay, not only we invest in the people we have internally, but we're going to invest in our CPA relationships as well. So when we have CPAs come to us and say, hey, we need this solution, there are times where you look at me and say, there's no way we're doing that. And I don't understand that, but that's okay. We'll figure that out later. But there are the other situations where our larger firms come to us and say, hey, listen, I need solutions for now. And because it's something that we can figure out, we can put a business model together, you obviously roll up your sleeves and say, I'll figure it out. And so we've done that repeatedly. I mean, obviously I started here in April of 2017 and I watched it one after another. And you can just see we continue to expand for our relationships, and they've appreciated that.
Well, I think anytime we do something, going is because we don't want to ever be viewed as competitive with our CPA firms. I mean, there's other things, whether it's business valuations or other kind of ancillary advisory services that we could do, but we know we're committed to the CPA industry. We are built for CPA firms.
Well, so that's not to cut you off, but you hit the nail on the head there. I think the biggest thing is that a lot of our CPAs relationships understand, even though they may do something of what we do internally, this is not a one size fits all. Mm-hmm. We don't go in and say, give us your client list. Let's figure out how we're going to look at cost seg R&D. No, what's the need?
Yeah. And it's been the fun. I say a lot, I don't say this, just say it. It's I haven't gone to work because I think we've built something that's quite special. But as we look at serving our CPAs, okay. And, for us, R&D and cost segregation is like our tax and audit. We're a traditional CPA firm. It's something we've been doing for now 2 decades. But how have we successfully incorporated some of these new service lines? And let's just use global business. How have we successfully incorporated that, and how have our firms realized the success and the benefits of that new practice line?
Well, it goes back to the kind of having access to some of the technical leads. Obviously, we have a team that goes out and helps with our relationships to understand kind of what services we offer. But if we're just going to talk specifically about international tax or GBS practice, that thing, when it started, we were going out and saying, hey, do you need international support? And there's this wide variety of people like, yes, absolutely. So then we figure out what the need is. Pricing? Is it IC disc? Is it, consulting? Is it compliance? Where's the necessary need? And as we figure that out, then it rolls into, okay, this is our lane. This is where we're going to stay in. Let us know how you need it. Something that we're a back office to you? Is it something that we need to be more ingrained in? Are we doing the full, turnkey solution for this? So, I mean, it's really kind of uncovering things within our firms and understanding what's that need.
Well, and I would add that there's that lane. There's also the lane of the firms that say, well, we do that in-house. And how have we approached that?
So usually when they do it in-house, that's a great thing, especially international tax, because if they're doing it in-house, a lot of times they're not doing everything, and there are very few that do. But most of the times we find out that maybe they do the compliance and the report. They don't do transfer pricing. They don't have IC disc. But if they have somebody internally, that's a nice thing, because usually they understand international tax to a level that they can get introduced to Greg, okay, or John or Catherine, and they can have a very high level conversation on where we can support those firms. And I think we've found that somebody internally that does international tax, that's a really good mesh. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know what? I don't like doing this over here. So can you guys
because handle it? That is probably the only, well, I wouldn't say the only. It is the primary practice that can be done as a turnkey solution or as in a complementary way.
Absolutely.
I think that's been it's been fun to build that out now as we celebrate our 6-year anniversary of that practice. That's been the fun thing, is that we can come in and, when you come in and do R&D credits or cost segregation, people know what that is. And here's how it fits. With international, that's 33 flavors of what that looks like with a CPA firm and how we build that out. Ultimately, I think that we build it out, number one, through education. I think that's what I'm very proud of the impact that we've had on CPA firms. And I think why we are respected because we're willing to make that investment. Dave and I, that's going back to August of 2018. When we made that decision, we said, we're not going to make any money on education.
Yeah,
We're not. It's going to be a benefit of doing business with McGuire Sponsel.
absolutely.
And, you and I were on a conference call this morning with a firm that we've worked with, for the past 14 years. It's been a very, very successful relationship. Last week I went out, literally met with my client who was my first R&D study in July of 2005, still a client today. Because we have made the decision as a firm that we're committed to educating and being that technical resource. There's not it's not a mentality, just call us when you have a stack of engagement letters. It's no, we're going to make those investments.
Yeah. No, it's a line I use all the time. Obviously, I want to, I want people to know I'm their guy.
Sure.
First call.
Sure.
Right. Don't just call me for an opportunity. Call me when you need something.
We touched on the international piece, and I also want to touch on the property tax piece. What can you kind of help our listeners know how we've been successful in that area? Because that's again something that is relatively new. We're in our third year of that. It's relatively new to our alliance network. Can you kind of say how some of the successes and how we've helped firms with in serving them in that area?
It's a little easier than in international tax. You go from one extreme to this. So, but yeah, I think property tax has been something that's been refreshing for our CPAs, just because it's not something that most of them don't do it internally. So when they look at this, it's like, okay, well, how can you help here? And the nice thing is it's really just give us an address. We can support from there. We can find out if it makes sense. So what's happened, I think, over the last year and a half with property tax, because when we started this, obviously the education process starts. We've now educated. Now we're seeing one address after another. It's like, hey, Tim, I got this portfolio. The one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of our CPAs have got a lot more comfortable. It's a situation where it's like, you got to do that. How do you charge? What's the fees look like? There's really no skin in the game. There's no skin in the game from the client. So when they realize that, it's like, well, why wouldn't we look at this? And I think that's the point we're at now. It's just it's a floodgate.
The other practice line that I wanted to touch on today is our location advisory practice. I think, as I tell people, it's the most un-CPA thing we do because it's not federal tax. I think people assume commercial brokers and lawyers specialize in it. How have we seen that integrated into our service line offerings to our CPA?
Well, if you're asking me, it's integrated just like everything else. But I can tell you, it is one of those things, like you said, it is the most un-CPA thing. So the little bit of the challenge there is a lot of things we do can be retroactive. Okay, you can go back previous years. It's not like that. LAS is a situation where we've got to get in front of it. And I think that's been a bit of a challenge because people, obviously gunslingers, kind of like yourself, when you have a decision made in your mind, you want to make a purchase, or you want to go do something, you usually do it. Last thing you do is think about calling your CPA. So this has been something that I have noticed, though, over the last probably, I would say, 12 to 16 months. A lot of our CPAs are using this as a consulting arm, more as a sword and not a shield. So we're seeing a lot of this come around, and especially with OB3, the investments that are being made right now. Just in the last week, I've had 3 or 4 calls about an LAS.
Well, again, it's brought certainty. It's brought certainty to tax. Tax policy brings some level of certainty and calmness. I think the other thing that I'll add on to what you just said, it's understanding the overall potential value of state and local incentives. And I think that's where it's often overlooked. When you look at our goals and the deals, that dozens of deals we do a year across the country, you're looking at, you look at the invested value of a deal. Let's call it $10 million. A state and local, our goal is a state and local incentive package that equates to about 10% of that. So in those dollars, it's $1 million over, let's say, 5 years. Okay, that's free equity to a client. And I think that's where we're trying to help our alliance partners understand the overall value. Yeah. And I think it's a little intimidating being speculative. I mean, CPAs are conservative. Clients are very busy, and sitting down with them and saying, okay, what's the future look like can be a little daunting. Yeah. But it's incredibly valuable to 100%. Them if they can work with us and help that.
Here's the biggest challenge too. And what I see is sometimes you have a client that comes and says, you know what, we'll work with our state and local. We'll figure out a deal. That's great. And you can probably do that. But I asked, and I just found this out here recently, those deals, they're receiving about 20% of what the actual
benefit should be. They're getting what?
The statutory side is about 20% of what the benefit could be. So,
well, you don't have an advocate. They don't have an advocate.
Correct. That's the challenge.
But, Tim, obviously, as we embark on another tax season here, when the calendar turns to 2026 and we're nose down, getting things out for the next 3.5 months, I want our listeners to know that we're here as a resource. That's how we've positioned our firm. That's the objective. Like I said earlier, we are built for CPA firms. And I want our listeners to know that as they face decisions, as they face opportunities, as they have questions, to never hesitate to reach out to us to ask how we can help.
I'd agree.
Thank you, my friend.
Yep. Thank you.
Take care. That wraps up today's episode and officially closes out season 2 of Let's Talk Tax. A big thank you to Tim for joining me and for sharing the insights he's gathered from working out alongside CPA firms, clients, and referral partners all year long. As we heard today, 2025 was a year defined by change. But it was also a year that reinforced the power of strong partnerships, proactive planning, and having specialists you can trust at your side. The firms that stayed engaged, collaborative, and future-focused delivered the most value to their clients. If you'd like to learn more about how McGuire Sponsel partners with CPA firms or how Alliance Network supports firms across the country, visit McGuireSponsel.com or reach out to our team directly. Thanks for joining us throughout Season 2. We look forward to bringing you more insights, conversations, and practical guidance in Season 3. This is Let's Talk Tax. See you next year.